Hello, and welcome to this edition of Secure Networks, the Endace Packet Forensic Files, with your host, Michael Morris. This episode's very special guest is Jessica Bair Oppenheimer, Director of Security Operations for Cisco. Jessica, welcome. Thank you for joining us. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your background.
Hey, Michael, it's so good to be here. Appreciate the invitation. I started my career in Army CID. If you've seen Jack Reacher, I am not that buff, but that's what I did. Doing computer forensics, volunteered for that team. So I was getting into the what's on disk, what's in memory, and something we didn't do was network forensics, which has been fun to evolve into that space through my career. So that's how I got started. Worked for the company that made the software they used in the Army as a startup. Did that for 13 years. Joined another little company. It's now been 11 years ago, called ThreatGrid Malware Analytics, to look at the stuff we'd find on disk when we were doing the computer forensics. And then what is this? If it's has a hash value that's known, great, but if it's unknown, then let's figure out what the heck that is. Put it for dynamic analysis. Joined them, and 6 weeks later, Cisco acquired us and evolved into working with partners to build integrations. And then a passion project, I was asked by one of our partners to come and help them out at Black Hat 10 years ago, and said, sure, well, I'm happy to do that. And that's where that journey started of doing SOC work for these major events.
No, your expertise is, I've known you for a number of years as a partner of Cisco's, and your expertise in SOC operations is just so exciting to me to talk to and get to share with our listeners of some best practices. So where I kind of want to start are, strategically, what are some key characteristics that differentiate next-gen SOC from traditional models, and how have you implemented these in your current or past roles?
That's a really good question. So the SOCs I participate in are high visible. So I was in Paris for a couple of months last year, and that was a 2-year process to work with the security operations team that was their prime contractors as Atos, and Cisco was asked if we could bring the expertise in that we had from Black Hat. For example, I gave a briefing to the head of the SOC for Paris 2024 about 2 years prior, and he's like, can I come join you at Black Hat? We're like, well, let me check it out. And they said, sure, put Cisco as a part of your team. So they came out to London and got to see what it's like to have highly skilled people really focused on an event that's being attacked, how to keep them motivated, what some of those best practices are. For an example, we have to let people do really bad stuff on this network at Black Hat, because if you block them, then they pay thousands of dollars to come to training or see a briefing or show their buddy, here's the latest code I saw, or the arsenal. So how to make it a safe place to do that while they don't attack the rest of the network, shut down what the internet that you're providing, or attack the infrastructure elsewhere, the rest of the world. And that kind of got them just thinking for Paris, because they have folks coming in like the press, and they need to allow them to go to all sorts of bad stuff, but if they're infected, not affect the rest of the network, because then if they block them, the story would be Paris Olympics blocked the press from going to wherever they need to be. Right. So those are the type of special situations that those expertise brought in, and it got them super excited. I've also worked on things like the NFL Super Bowl the last 4 years. So between Olympics and Super Bowl, you can't get more high visibility in a live event, but with that, we've also been working on things like RSAC Conference, the largest cybersecurity conference for leadership. That's where the deals are made. And then, of course, Black Hat, the largest cybersecurity conference for the technical side. So that's where I've really focused on. These are event type SOCs where we stand them up in just a couple of days, like a Black Hat, after planning for months in advance, or for the Olympics, where you have a couple of years to plan, burn in the technology, and you lock it down before you go in. Or things like working with the NFL, where they actually deploy a SOC over about a month prior, a NOC and a SOC together for that event. They deploy it to the stadium, whichever's hosting it has their own network, so they have a network inside of that network that they have to protect, and still interact with it. Mm-hmm. So those are some of the type of SOCs that we really focus on.
Yeah, no, I had the pleasure of being with you at the RSA SOC, and it was just an incredible experience being a part of that. and the innovation that you drive in there. So how do you ensure your SOC remains agile and proactive in detecting and responding to advanced persistent threats and AI-driven attacks now?
It's people is a lot of it. Is that we had the opportunity to use alpha code, like when we had our Cisco XDR is announced at RSAC Conference 2 years ago. Well, we had an alpha version inside of the SOC. We're banging on it, and then we took it to Black Hat Asia. And the day that it was announced at Black Hat USA 2 years ago, we had it inside there. So we have access to the latest technology, and also engineers that are motivated to use it. We actually have an engineer that's focused on innovation, and other ones focused on integrations, both the Cisco technologies, making sure they all work together, but with all these third parties. I mean, that's the passion. I still get to play in that as my day job, my other part of my day job, which is working with competitors. I can call up CrowdStrike anytime I need to. We've got each other on our phones and text each other like, hey, you going to be here? What's going on? Because we've become friends over the years. Our Palo Alto, we hug it out. At Black Hat, we're both there protecting these events. And when CrowdStrike and Palo Alto is like, yeah, let's play ball, and because we need to secure these joint customers, and everyone else says, yeah, we need to do that. So we have a lot of cooperation from the folks, because inside of these security operations centers, and the innovation that we foster in these major events, we then share with core engineering. We'll make it something like we had an integration with Palo Alto firewalls that we built for Black Hat 2 years ago. And now the engineering team is going to put that into public release later in the next month or so, probably by the time this podcast is out. So those are type of innovations that we're constantly looking at. And then things like AI, when you and I were in San Diego just a couple, last month for Cisco Live, we saw an AI track where they were doing domain generation algorithms, DGAs, for domains, domain name service, DNS, and how we had seen those at major events, major sporting events, like I mentioned. We've seen at Black Hat, we've seen at RSAC Conference, now we're seeing them here. So one of our team members, like, let me grab an AI model and run these DGAs against that, and wrote a blog about it. And that innovation, we've now met with our Talos intelligence team, met with the Splunk intelligence team, and they're looking at a holistic way to tackle this major campaign that's been going on for a couple of years now, but now we're starting to see them using AI to generate these things. So we're using AI to fight AI, and then passing that on to the customers' innovation.
Yeah, that was a great story. Hats off to Ryan for the innovation there on what he did around that. So that was a fun story of him using AI to fight AI. Really incredible moves. What role does you mentioned Talos a second ago. What role does threat intelligence play in your SOC operations? And how do you integrate real-time intelligence into your detection and response workflows?
We're always going to have unknowns out there, but it's always unknown to you if you're not taking advantage of the rest of the world, right? And all that threat intelligence that's being shared there. So don't be hit by something that other people have known about just because you're not tied into those. So we have folks like Alpha Mountain AI and PulseType who donate licenses to all those events that we go to, and we appreciate that. With Talos, you have open source as well, like Alien Vault, OTX, excuse me, and some other open source things. So there's two ways. There's subscriptions that you can have. We got all the malware analysis, threat intelligence coming in from Malware Analytics, which was ThreatGrid, where I mentioned I joined 11 years ago. That's being fed into XDR. Yeah. You have the Splunk as well, as we use that inside of a platform, and that integrates directly with Talos Intelligence. And you can have others like Record a Future. They were just purchased, but they have an integration with Splunk to put that intelligence right in there and correlate it. So the way that I approach it is, if you don't have that threat intelligence, then why you're taking unnecessary exposure risk. But also, there's just things that are not known. Like, we have really good folks we work with that do smart packet capture, and those are based on detections that are already known, right? Let's capture it because we knew that we detected it. There's threat intelligence or some sort of detection, Saracata or Snort or whatever it might be. But for the unknowns, if you're not doing full packet capture, continuous packet capture, then you sometimes miss those, and we have to like show me the packets, and it's like we don't have them because it wasn't detected. So you'd have to have that balance of both what's known and what's unknown.
No, that's a perfect analogy, and we appreciate your appreciation of full packet capture, certainly here from Endace. You mentioned AI a minute ago and had that great story about using AI to combat AI threats. A more general question, though, how is because AI is a buzzword almost every security tool is highlighting right now. So how is your SOC, and what pieces of AI and what tools of AI are you leveraging to learn and enhance your threat detection and triage, and ultimately your incident response? And can you share any specific tools or use cases beyond what you already shared?
Yeah, it's a great question. So there's one of the things is reporting, obviously. So it's now you have buttons inside of like Cisco XDR where you have an incident that you're investigating. It looks like now we've determined that is indeed an incident and it needs to be escalated up. There's a button they can click to do a summary of it to make it so that it's easier for their report writing. Other ones on the detection engines, for the SOC specifically that we're working on, as we're looking at what's going to happen with LA28 and the Olympics there, and planning, like that's been told, this needs to be an AI focused, AI driven, and a lot of it is about how we get a lot of the customers we talk to about how can you have self healing, so that it's detection and taking that response action. But then there's also like, I don't want to take down the freaking network that people are watching live. And so there's that balance in there where they want to have very specific human controls to help elevate the conversation with the context. Like what AI really helps is take all these different sources together and give me context around it, help me understand what exactly is this threat, where it's located, who's involved, how this affects things. And if I take this action, what might it propagate down? And that's where we're working on in the next is like how that type of visibility and understanding was like, what's the effect of taking remediative action? What's the cost or risks of that? So that's something. And then the other area is that we have this SOC in a box that we deploy with. We've at the top of the rack, we have our EndaceProbes and the full packet capture. What you gave us like a petabyte almost of storage that we took to RSAC Conference as well as Cisco Live, and it's going to head with us to the Asia Pacific this fall. So that's racked in there. We have firewalls for redundancy and UCS's, Unified Computing Platform. We've also went and got some GPUs and NVIDIA chips, so we can run AI models right there on the SOC in the box, which then connects to the Cisco Security Cloud and Splunk Security Cloud. So you have all the hardware deployed in the world connected to your network operations center, full packet capture with our Endace partners, and then all the security tools. We'll also be able to run AI Defense, the new product from Cisco, to help protect those AI models that we have from attackers and be able to run those models locally inside our SOC and then have them protected.
No, that's your SOC in the box is the leading edge of what to have in your SOC operations, and I love seeing customers use that as a reference model. So certainly tons of innovation in there. So kind of continuing down this thread, with threat actors, more increasingly using AI to automate and scale attacks, how do defensive teams like SOC teams stay ahead of the curve from defensive AI capabilities, right? Because it's that automation and scale of AI that's really helping threat actors.
Part of it is pushing on your providers, like the technology providers that you have, and what is their plan for it, and how can they make sure that those AI models talk to each other, so there's not new silos of data. Michael, we've worked for years in alliances to build integrations to connect technology so there's not gaps which can be exploited by the attackers. And now you have all these AI models that are being in there. And if you don't have somewhere with a federated search or talking to each other, then you have silos again of data.
Yeah.
And if there's gaps there, so those are the areas that we're really looking at. Like we're pushing on our AI team inside of Cisco. When I met with the folks at Microsoft a couple of years ago and talking about this sort of thing, I brought that up to them, and they're like, "Yeah, we need to have that." And as they were looking at their Copilot, for example, how to have a way that third parties can connect to it, and that the different models can talk to each other. And then as your SOC matures, then you may have the capacity to hire someone that is focused in that area. We happen to have that privilege of Ryan McClellan,
Right.
who you mentioned. Apparently, you know what type of whiskey I like, because that slipped out there. But McLennan, and you have someone who has the ability to pull down AI models. We did at Cisco Live, run it like, oh, this isn't giving me everything I need. I'm getting some false positives.
Right.
So look, I'm trying to handle this AI generated domain generation. So pull down a different model and feed it data and iterate on it. And then how am I going to host this and how am I going to protect it? So as SOCs mature, it's good to have an engineer who has that passion
Right.
for it and the capability of working with those models.
You mentioned earlier about having balance between automation and human interaction. So kind of continuing down that, your thoughts around balancing automation with human expertise in a modern SOC. Where do you draw the line between efficiency and oversight?
It's a really valid question. Some of the things that we've been doing, is bringing Splunk and Cisco XDR together. And people are like, how does that work? I said, well, what we do is we use the automation inside of Cisco XDR to go and act like a tier 3 threat hunter into the Splunk data, and to look for those sort of events and detections, and then elevate those up in visibility into an event, an incident that your tier 1 folks can take a look at, and they can do their work inside there, graphically visualize what's happening, but also it makes it so that your tier 3 folks, that they can do their job faster and see the blast radius of something that's not in a visual manner that you couldn't see looking right inside of a SIM. And as certain type of events happen and they start to, as we saw at Cisco Live, we got 64 plus events or incidents that came in from passwords in the clear, as we saw people using POP3, people using IMAP, people using HTTP GET without having, instead of the secure version. And when it was just a few of those, all that, we had the full packet capture with Endace. We had the Zeek logs that were being generated from this, being sent to Splunk. Rather than someone looking through those, we had automation inside of XDR to elevate those up, be able to visually see it, look at the event, and then make the decision to print out the report, escalate it, and we would actually go and find people. But we started having more and more of these. It started to overwhelm our tier 1 analysts and almost be like a denial of service attack on our time with just the number of passwords that were in clear. So we brought in more automation. We brought Splunk Enterprise Security team to take a look at it, who was there with us, the tier deity, and they were able to build automate. We did a wall of sheep or shame with redacted because there were so many, right? But also automation to go and reach out to those folks, rip through those logs, and then let them know, it's like, hey, your stuff's in the clear, you're compromised. Take action, come see us. We can send you the data if you want. So it's the core of it was we used automation to empower our tier 1, tier 2 people to be able to take a look at data, make a decision, and then to escalate or remediate, and then to even do a greater level of automation should we need to. And that's part of it. Also, what we looked at is how can we give context, like especially when we go to Black Hat, we're going to have really bad stuff happen on the network that in a production network you would say, I would stop this, block it, shut it down. Here you have to allow it, but then how do you find the needle in the needle stack, the true Black Hat threat, when it's like we call a Black Hat positive, which is, yeah, that's bad, but we have to let it roll, right? And then, so how do we identify that? And context is what really matters, and automation is the only way that you can make those sort of rapid decisions inside of that really hostile environment. is using automation to bring all that information together, distill it into human readable format, and understand the context so you can know I can close this as a black hat positive, or no, I need to escalate this because someone is using our infrastructure to log into a water treatment plant, and that's a bad thing. It was illegal.
Right.
If it's illegal elsewhere, it's illegal at Black Hat or RSA Conference and anywhere else. So, and that's a real world case we had to work on. They were
Right.
trying to show it off, but it is not lawful to do. Stop it.
Right. No, context is key. I think that was the key out of that in the balance there. So, Jessica, you've been in SOCs for many, many years. You've built many SOCs, as we've talked about. What are some metrics or key KPIs you use to measure the effectiveness and the maturity of your SOC? And so, for our listeners, how can they kind of learn from your insights to really drive continuous improvement in their operation?
Absolutely. You hear things like mean time to detection. That's
Right.
one that's big out there, and it's real. We had existing technologies that would go and do all this correlation and really cool stuff, and then elevate things up, and it may take longer than we needed. And so we went and rolled our own, and automation. So when these side events happen, I want to see it in less than 5 minutes inside my environment. That's reducing that time to detection from hours to minutes. So that's something to look at. And then also mean time to respond. How do we get the information and prioritization in the hands of the analysts so that they can look at what's the biggest threat and to go and take action on that as quickly as possible to then report it, shut it down, whatever it might be. And then when you're able to reduce that time to detection and time to respond, then what that did is also, we saw at RSA Conference in San Francisco this last spring, is time for the threat hunters to go then and look at the low signals. With that, for example, in the findings report that is going to be published here really soon, from that is one of our tiered DoD folks was looking for low latency signals in firewall and saw that there was a ping every second. That threat intelligence, we're able to look at the integrated threat intelligence, see what's going to a known bad domain from the XDR interface of that graphical view, right click and go right to Endace Wireshark for the pull packets and see that packet that was going every second and show this is an infection from a known command and control and that they're beaconing and having a response back. So that is not a training event. That is not a demonstration. That is not something cool. This is someone who came into the conference infected and then write an automation in Splunk Enterprise Security to notify the SOC management team when that person came back into the conference area so we could go help them clean up their system. So those are some of the things that the effectiveness and maturity is to reduce that time of detection, reduce that time response, and then to be so on top of it that you have time to go threat hunt and find these low-level signals and things that are out there lurking that may not have got red flashing lights.
Right. No, that's a great answer. And the threat hunting piece, I think, I expect a lot of SOCs aren't to that level yet, right? To have that luxury. So, okay. So looking ahead, I always like to ask my guests to put on their prognosticator hat and tell me what emerging technologies or practices do you believe will be critical for SOCs to adopt in the next 3 to 5 years, really to remain effective against evolving threat actors?
It's a really valid question, and we get that from a lot of our customers. Like as we're planning for this big event coming in Los Angeles in 2028, having those conversations, it's like the technologies that are available today will be different. You have to lock in your security stack, and what we're really looking at is a unification of 3 core technologies, one being the SIM or security incident and event management, having those logs coming in that allow you to do that deep threat hunting. The SOAR, the security operations automated response, that automation that we've been talking about, the XDR, the extended detection and response, and that unified detection and investigation platform that allows you to have, again, mean time to detection, mean time to respond, to really bring those together. We've seen some of the folks that we work with as competitors inside of these environments that are trending to that as well. Cisco is also, and that's you should expect as you're looking at your SOC. Like, how can I make those together? If they're not already all rolled into a platform, how do I ensure that the roadmap is going there, or then that they're open, that they don't have a closed environment? It's like I've been, there's interest in, we have an open platform XDR, like you better freaking make it so anyone can build against it. And
Right.
Splunk, and we've been wanting to do some work with one of our buddies on something, and they have a really popular platform that has the same sort of vision. And we're like, we wanted to build some stuff there, and it's like, yeah, well, only we can build it. Yeah. So obviously APIs are really important, and I know that's where they want to be. I think it's really important to have that community that
Right.
you can build stuff, share it, validate it, and allow your more mature customers, your SOCs, to build things on top of those platforms that meet their specific use cases that may not have been thought about when folks were in boardrooms and talking about product roadmaps and how capabilities. You need to provide that openness so that anything can connect to it, that you can have the different telemetry sources. They can take the best response actions and reduce that time to detection. And then again, how is AI going to be part of this? How can you give the best information to the humans so they can give it critical points, the yes, no, or tell me more, and then execute?
Yeah, open and interoperable, I think, is spot on of where things need to be from tools, because nobody's a single vendor anymore. So, Jessica, thank you for taking the time to join us and share your tremendous insights in how to build a better SOC. We ask our listeners to tune in next time for another edition of the Endace Packet Forensic Files. For more information about Endace's network packet capture platform and their integrations with our fusion technology partners like Cisco and Cisco XDR, please go to endace.com. Jessica, thanks again for taking your time.
With pleasure. Thanks, Michael.